I chased the dean of my business school, full syllabus in hand, up the stairs to pitch to her a nonprofit class I wanted to teach. Mind you, I was just a student. Nobody asked me to do this. There was no real reason, other than the fact that I saw a need. It's that young people were leaving my university because they didn't feel like it was socially impact-focused enough. I needed to see that change. When I chased the dean, I didn't say, "Hi, I have an idea." I said, "Hi, I built something." You also best believe I talked to every other administrator I could to have the same conversation. The dean might have not been the best point of contact for me to have this conversation and this class come to life, but I did find that person. And now I'm excited to say that I'm on the instruction team for the first ever Nonprofit and Leadership Theories class at my university. When people hear this story, some people say, "Ugh, the audacity." Other people brush it off and call it luck, and then others just confidence. Whether it's one of those things or a little bit of all three, this is how I see it. It's strategic leverage. It was understanding that the rooms I wanted to be in weren't waiting for me. I had to stop waiting to be chosen. To understand the real problem is the fact that we keep waiting for that job application, hoping and waiting for other opportunities to come our way. But we can't do that, because if we create that external locus of control, where do we provide our value? What really reframed and changed the situation for me was to understand that I couldn't keep competing for opportunities. I had to design them. So to find the places and spaces I best fit was to figure out where I could maximize my efforts and figure out what matters most to myself, but also to those around me. Currently, capable people, hardworking, talented people, stay stuck because they're passive in the moments that matter most. And that's why building leverage is so important. I see leverage as figuring out where you're putting the effort in the moments that matter most to create the most outsized outcomes. Thinking about my journey in life up to this point, my nonprofit work, my speaking, my teaching career, there were some patterns: prioritization, preparations, and probabilities. Together, I call this framework the 3 Ps of strategic leverage. It's understanding that I don't want you to ask the question, when am I going to be chosen? But ask yourself, how am I going to place effort with intention? So let's start with the first P here, prioritization. On average, we have 4,000 weeks to live. Not 4,000 months, not endless possibilities or infinite time, 4,000 weeks. That's it. But we live life chasing the next big meeting, the next trend, the things that don't serve us. And we just keep doing it. I know I have. Running a nonprofit while still being in school. Those are probably the things I should have prioritized. And yet I kept taking on projects that weren't valuable, that weren't helping me out at all. We've all done it. And so it's figuring out, where are you going to go all in on? Because we do have only 24 hours in the day. On average, we can take between 3 to 7 active projects on at once. So how are you spending your time? But once you figure out where you're weighing your time, then the next step, preparation, gets just a little easier. As you're thinking about preparation, let's go back to that dean story, right? Where I chased the dean down the stairs and had a great conversation. A lot of people hear that and they're like, oh, courage. That's what it took. Maybe a little bit of guts. Whether or not that's true, that was the second step. The first step people don't realize was the fact that I had to have a syllabus ready to pull out of my bag and hand to her. So to have that syllabus ready meant that she wasn't just judging an idea. She was judging something real. And so we're looking for those moments that when luck strikes, we're able to take it. Because it's when preparedness meets opportunity, when you're able to change the game. So figuring out where you're going to go all in on, that's the first step. But what are those things you're going to do to prepare so much more deeply and show genuine care in a way that other people won't? Another example is that of my nonprofit expertise. I have to have lots of funding conversations, and there's one specific one that I really wanted that came to mind. We had to have one one-on-one meeting with one stakeholder for 30 minutes. That was it. So, had a great meeting. But I started to realize there were decision makers that weren't going to be in the rooms that I was in, and I needed to get their attention. So instead of just having that one meeting and calling it a day, I had deeper conversations with that stakeholder so she could better advocate for us, and more importantly, I sent over a 3-page document on exactly why our organization fits, but also how we best fit their values and what they want. Helping think this through allowed them to make the decision and understand that we are best aligned. So we got the $25,000 grant. But it's moments like those that really shift the narrative that you need to be taking. So how are you preparing deeply? Once you've been able to really take those steps, you'll still understand you're not getting all the yeses you want to make. And that's okay. It's because there's still sometimes misalignment. It's not always going to be perfect. And that's why the last P, probabilities, is so important. Recently, I was applying for an internship, and there were over 2,200 applicants for only 9 interview slots. Tough odds, but it feels like that's reality these days. And yet, I got one of those 9 interviews. People think, oh, maybe she had a great resume. Whether I did or didn't, I'm not sure. But what I think was more helpful was the fact that I had written out a 5-page document sharing what I loved about that company, what I didn't, and how I could fix the things I didn't appreciate. That was preparation. But the next step was probabilities. The part that people didn't realize was the fact that I had submitted a similar document to 5 other companies with similar roles. I had the same basis, the same frameworks, and yet I customized them each and tailored them for their needs. This was what changed the game. It was understanding that that was step 1. You'll hear about the successful story, but not the 5 that didn't work out. And so it is a numbers game. It's figuring out how are you taking depth and volume of work and combining them, because you don't need that one yes from that one internship. You don't need that one yes from that job application. But if you can just get one yes altogether, that is what you need to change your life. So, think about what are you going to be doing to prepare deeply and then create a volume of work. I get it. Rejection isn't easy. But if you knew that at the end of 100 no's you would for sure get that one yes, wouldn't you start getting the reps in? Because rejection is hard, but it gets easier with time. I know I'd start taking those first steps. So, at the end of the day, understand that big opportunities aren't random. They are engineered. My favorite poet, Mary Oliver, once said, "What will you do with your one wild and precious life?" A lot of people hear this and they think about purpose. When I hear this, I hear a quote about action. So, how are you choosing what you're spending your time in? How are you figuring out how to prepare deeply? And what are the small actions that you're taking over and over again that are going to increase your bets? Chasing the business school dean up the stairs did not change my life, but to stop waiting to be chosen did.